Hello, and welcome to the Legendarium Green Team. I am your host, Stormrunner, and I am joined today by Kyptan,
Heyo.
BefuddledPanda,
Hi.
Spook,
Hello.
and Jingles.
Howdy, howdy.
Today we will be discussing Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn, Book 2 of the Thrawn Trilogy. We'll start with a non-spoiler section, and then we will give a spoiler warning before heading into spoiler territory. So as with the Heir to the Empire episode, here are a few things to note before we dig into the book. So this is the second book in what is effectively a sequel trilogy to the original Star Wars trilogy. So with this in mind, there will be spoilers for the Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, the entirety of the original Star Wars trilogy, as well as minor spoilers for the prequel trilogy. There might also be some minor spoilers for the sequel trilogy, but this would mostly be terminology used to compare past and present state of Star Wars media. So with that preamble, what did everyone think of the book?
I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. I mean, the beginning was like, okay, yeah, picking back up where the first book left off. And then, yes, no regrets reading this. And I think if you like the first one, then you should definitely continue with the series. And I think you will really, really enjoy the second one. I liked Dark Force Rising more than Heir to the Empire. And I had already liked Heir to the Empire. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on that same boat. This is my second time reading it, but it's been many years since that first visit, which I don't recall actually thinking too highly of Dark Force Rising. But upon this reread, I think I actually agree that I enjoyed it much more, especially in the last 200 pages or so. It really picks up in a way that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I think I would put it comparative to the first book in the series. I think it suffers a little bit from middle book syndrome, where it doesn't really have its own identity as a book, other than serving as a bridging point between the start and the end of the series, I think. But as my first time reading it, it was great. I loved the characterizations. I loved the interactions. I just like seeing how everybody's story progresses through the series. New characters and old.
I'm going to fight back on that a little bit, because in Star Wars, every book is a middle book.
Sure.
and really, I think you got to judge them on what story beats they set up and conclude in themselves. And I think that in this one, there is one specific, there's really two specific examples of that I think are set up and conclude pretty neatly. And it feels almost like the last book might be more wrap up than like finishing off things that were maybe set up in this one.
Okay. I haven't read the last one, so
I'm just saying that so far, like, yeah, there's a few things, there's a few storylines that maybe just moved along a little bit, but at least two major storylines were introduced and closed in this book.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think it's pretty solid. I think it's nice how it ties into the movies, but I think it's also nice how it expands way past them and brings in supplemental materials from the video games to flesh out the technical world.
I'll want more on that later.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I haven't played. I guess the only Star Wars game I've really played is Battlefront 2, the PS2 version, and the Lego Star Wars. So
Both good games to have played.
The only ones you need to.
And I also really appreciated how it gave us some numbers for starship speeds in hyperspace.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure those are consistent
in
throughout.
light years.
15.9. I don't know. 1590, whatever. Yes,
Mark
No, they
IV.
gave us like light years per hour in hyperspace, and it was great. I loved it.
that is true.
It was like 120 or something.
Details that Kip would notice.
A precursor to, dare we say, the dreaded word midichlorians.
Sure. Which should have stayed in books.
Or as they call it now, M count.
Oh dear.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I thought I enjoyed the book a lot. I think it's a fun Star Wars book. I think a lot of things happen. I didn't find myself thinking too deeply about particular plot points, other than some of the other than a few that, in terms of what did they imply. But yeah, it's a fun book. I like Panda said, I would recommend that folks continue with the series if they enjoyed the first one and this one. And yeah.
I really appreciated that this book was very readable. It was easy to follow, very easy to just keep reading, and that means a lot to me. So, for my enjoyment.
Yeah, it very much progresses from one. It's just we're moving from one scene to the next, and that's the.
Yeah.
So,
I also
go ahead.
find like Timothy Zahn's just management of characters and storylines to be pretty good for some other Star Wars books where it's not so good. Like he actually is able to divide everyone and have them do things that actually moves the plot along, and then still bring them back together. Maybe a little bit, with a little bit more rough of a wrap up, but on the whole, he's able to manage them.
I'm not a huge fan of the way that he writes Luke.
Sure.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's the least movie accurate.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I am interested in hearing what you have to say about that, but I think that'll get into spoilers.
Yeah, but I do think that. I think
Okay.
all the other character he's got a pretty solid grasp on, but Luke, his naivete is a little stretched.
I
see.
have a specific point on that.
Goes on a little too long.
Okay.
Yeah, do you think part of that might be that it's just that writing a Jedi character, and he's really the only Jedi character we get a point of view from, so that
Now.
Leia, but
Leia's not a Jedi.
Yeah, or so that maybe in managing some of the fights in particular, that it might have been a new exercise, we'll say, in how to balance out how a Jedi would.
It's not even in
perceive
the
himself.
fights that I think it's wrong. I think in the fights, actually, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think I know what
it's
you're
in
talking
his
about.
it's in his everyday decisions that I have more of a problem.
Alright.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think where I'm kind of
especially around a certain other character, but
I made note of that.
that.
There's a big
Mhm.
section where I was like,
Yeah.
I kind of think Luke's ignorance plays out so that another character can be built, which I'm grateful for because the character is awesome. But it is it's very obvious that this is not the state Luke should be in at this point.
Well, actually, so the first book, right, Heir to the Empire, there is an annotated version of that where we get more glimpse into what Zahn had control over versus what he didn't have control over.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, because the fans didn't buy enough copies of the annotated version, we don't have an annotated version of Dark Force Rising. So I would be curious to know, with the Luke character, how much he could have made him more, certain way, versus Lucas having more say in that.
Yeah. But for a Star Wars novel, I'd give this a 4 out of 5. For a regular novel, I might give it a 3 out of 5.
Really? Oh.
Maybe a 3.5 out of 5, but yeah.
I think it is very neat. Like the storytelling overall is pretty clean. It's
Sure.
yeah, which at times I really enjoy and I needed. So
And for a popcorn thriller, 4 out of 5. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Although the
Uh,
ending part, I'm like maybe a 4.5.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay.
I would probably, I certainly wouldn't disagree with that general take. I think have soured a little bit on, and we touched on this I think in the last episode, but expectations of a science fiction or fantasy trilogy now would be different than they were in like the early mid 90s.
I don't
So,
know.
well,
I've read a bunch of recent books that are worse than this one.
that's true. None of the Ninth was published more recently.
Ouch! Dang.
Ow.
Right.
Ow.
That's the only dig I'm gonna throw in.
I will readily admit that None of the Ninth has nothing like the technical complexity of this book. And by technical complexity, I mean number of technical devices that are plot relevant.
Wait, you mean like decisions that characters make are not they don't have these complex moral quandaries about whether or not they should be fighting the Empire?
I mean, they do.
Some of them do, I guess.
Luke even has them. Like,
yeah, we'll get there.
Luke's like, is it okay to kill stormtroopers?
Well, yeah, that's yeah.
When they're trying to kill me immediately?
Yeah. Spoilers?
Yeah,
No,
It is.
that's not spoilers. That's never
No,
spoilers.
no.
Spoilers, it is.
Can we get into spoilers?
yes.
Sure.
Although I think there is a fun meta discussion to be had about what Star Wars things count as spoilers culturally.
Stormtroopers dying is not.
It's not. We're
No, I agree.
missing. Yeah. And
Yeah, they do miss quite a bit.
yes, same to
Yeah.
main character plot armor in certain scenes.
So I will say, there's not very many instances where stormtroopers miss and there isn't like a lightsaber blocking the shots,
True.
which I give this book points for.
I have
Yes.
something to say about that. But we'll get into
Okay.
it.
Okay, so we're gonna start the spoiler section in 3, 2, 1.
Everyone dies.
Okay. Yeah, everyone dies. All right. Final warning and
Leia marries Luke.
Wait,
Whoa.
what?
Lan marries Luke.
Leia.
Oh, Leia. Okay.
I didn't know there was incest. I missed that.
In
That
my
was
Star
in the
Wars,
movie,
no.
No, I know that in this book. I must have blacked out.
Okay. So here's our summary. A lot of things happen, so hopefully it's not too long. All right. After the Battle of Van, Grand Admiral Thrawn seeks to continue his quest to conquer, or as he sees it, reconquer the New Republic and restore the Empire as the ruling entity in the galaxy. His first move of the novel is to capture the smuggler Talon Karrde, who had just abandoned his base on Mercure. Talon Karrde's second-in-command, Mara Jade, convinces Thrawn to not imprison her, and after escaping, reluctantly seeks out Luke Skywalker, who she sees as the only person capable of helping her free Karrde. Luke has gone to Jomark to visit Jedi Master Jerus Sabaoth in hopes of learning more of the Force and developing his skills as a Jedi. Luke quickly, and thankfully, but not too quickly, or as quickly as he should have, realizes that Sabaoth is not in fact a Jedi Master in practice, but rather a petty and insane dictator of a small village. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Bothan Counselor Phalia continues to sabotage the New Republic with his selfish political machinations, insisting that Admiral Akbar is an Imperial conspirator. Through a journey to clear Akbar's name, Han and Lando meet former Corellian Senator Bel Iblis, and discover the existence of the Dark Force, an armada of highly automated Old Republic Dreadnought-class ships that would turn the tide of the conflict between Thrawn's Imperial Remnant and the New Republic. Following a rendezvous with a Nokri assassin, Leia, or Lady Vader as the Nokri referred to her, journeys to Onager, the homeworld of the Nokri people. After a tense, almost encounter with Thrawn, Leia discovers that the Empire has been actively poisoning the crops that the Nogri depend on, and uses this information to turn the Nogri to the side of the New Republic. Back on Jomark, after a less than pleasant encounter with Sabaoth, who was sidelined by both Thrawn and the plot of this book, Mara, Jade, and Luke flee Jomark and subsequently rescue Karrde from Thrawn. This initiates a race to find the Dark Force. A small force from the New Republic is met at the Dark Force's coordinates by a contingent of Imperial ships and a battle ensues. With help from Mara Jade, Karrde's forces, and reinforcements from Bella Bliss, the New Republic manages to capture a few of the dreadnoughts, only to realize that Thrawn had already poached most of the fleet and has been cloning an army to crew them and lead in his conquest of the galaxy.
Dun, dun.
Okay.
Bum, bum, bum.
We forgot to say that Jingles wasn't on the episode for Heir to the Empire, but now he's here. So yay!
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, Jingles.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all. Okay, can I share something about the stormtroopers thing?
Yep.
In the part where like Luke and Mara were going to save Karrde from from Chimera,
Yep.
he specifically said that, oh, we should not use stormtroopers as a disguise because their helmets are really hard to see out of.
Yeah.
And I was
He
like,
does.
okay, first of all, thank you for the confirmation. Second, my expectation with how Thrawn operates is that he would have realized that the design of the helmets were not conducive for like being able to see, and therefore would have changed the design so that the
I
stormtroopers would
think
have been
Luke's
more
a
effective.
crybaby. I think that stormtrooper helmets are actually awesome, and if you understand how to use their heads-up display, they're much better than unaided vision. And Luke is just not super smart about it.
I mean,
Wait, they
maybe
have
Luke
this
not
got like
trained.
prescription lenses in the stormtrooper helmet he took.
And also,
I actually
Luke's
don't
face
know.
is shaped wrong.
I don't know how the stormtrooper helmets work. Like, do they have like a computer screen
Yeah, they have
display in them?
screens. It's not a window,
Ah.
it's a screen.
Is that explained somewhere in a book that
I mean,
haven't
yes,
read?
but that book's not canon anymore, so
Yeah.
Well, okay,
And neither are
but
these books.
Neither are these. Yeah, neither are these.
yeah.
Well, yeah, technically.
Okay, that's good to
And
know.
they
Thank
also do
you.
things like dampen down blaster shots so they don't blind the person inside.
Oh, smart. Okay, all right.
Yep.
But yes, back to your point about the stormtroopers' aim not being a joke. In this book,
Yeah.
duly noted. Yes.
The stormtroopers are generally like the stormtroopers are the highest level of threat that you get that isn't like Mara Jade in this book with a blaster.
True.
They go past multiple like techs, troopers, TIE fighter pilots, deckhands. But when the stormtroopers show up, that's a real firefight, and Luke has to pull out the Force and his lightsaber and use
Yeah,
that to
'cause-
get the better of them.
Yeah, because that's a good point. That is where he has his moral quandary with the text, where he does the Obi-Wan thing with the distraction.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
Well, those were pilots, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's still a really cool scene, though. Watching like he has to stay focused on them because he's clearly not trained well enough. Just
Well,
shows a little bit of thought going into that.
One thing I give major props to this book for is that it does have multiple levels of Imperial staff,
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it's good military science fiction in that way.
agreed.
Yeah, and I think Peleon's point POVs help with that.
And it even explained what the like big flared black helmet means, the one that we saw in the movies.
Yeah.
It means that they're fleet crew.
Mm,
Hmm.
okay, I did not pay attention to that detail.
Yeah, I didn't. I did think the trash compactor scene was a fun
Fun callback?
Yes.
Mhm.
That was good fun. Yeah. There's a lot of callbacks throughout this book.
Hmm.
Yeah, don't let it be said that Timothy Zahn doesn't do fan service, because he actually does.
Did you notice that they used the same magnetic atmosphere containment in the hangar bay that they used to keep the fumes from escaping the garbage chute?
We did not.
No,
Yeah.
but that's kind of funny.
That's clever.
So when Luke crawls up out of the compactor like area and into the chute itself, there's different atmospheres, so he
Oh,
doesn't have to stomach the stench of the pit when after he's made it up that far.
Hmm.
It was fun.
nice detail.
I loved also the turbo lift shaft scenes
Hmm.
Oh,
and the vehicle transport system inside a Star Destroyer.
Yes.
Vehicle deep storage. Fun.
Yes.
yes, that's yeah. Hey, we need the party to go somewhere that we need another area of the ship to create tension between Thrawn and the protagonists, or good guys, we could say, since Thrawn's kind of the protagonist. And will Thrawn be able to figure it out? Which of course he does, but of course not in time.
I think overall, and I noted this in the first, when we were talking about the first book, is that reading this, there's just more to chew on. There's more to understand, more to help you orient yourself in like how, the technology works, how the galaxy works, and the people relationships and internal reflections and quandaries. Overall, it's just richer. Like the movies give you the general idea, the big picture, but then in the books you get the deeper details, which
Yep.
is really fun.
And many
Yes.
more ship types and names
Yes.
and characteristics of them, and you get the functions and the loadouts. And a lot of that did come from the video games.
Mm. Nice.
Which video game specifically at this time would have been?
TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Okay. I
But
think
yeah,
even
like
on
the different loadouts, like a reconnaissance Y-Wing, a Z95 Headhunter,
Yeah.
even the idea of like an etheric rudder for steering the ship.
And that is a good general point, because when you're watching the movies, especially, well, in general, particularly in the original trilogy, outside of like Star Cruiser, Star Destroyer level ship, and fighter jet of some sort, like they all mostly seem to generally function the same way.
Yeah.
The Y-wings are quote unquote bombers, but mostly they're just flying around doing the same things X-wings are.
Yep.
So getting that more of that detail is a nice touch.
Yeah. It's just more realistic. Makes the world feel more real,
More full. Yeah.
more full. Yeah.
And speaking of ships, I really liked that we got to see an astromech piloted ship without a pilot.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got to see R2 with some laser cannons.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
That was a nice little surprise. I wasn't expecting R2 to be part of that scene, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
Being
think
a real
everybody, I
snarky
forgot
guy.
about him. Yeah.
R2 versus Jedi Master. Who's gonna win?
R2.
Apparently. Well, speaking of Jedi Master, so something I did really like is just really seeing the difference in capability with the Force. So like Leia, well, actually really Mara Jade, right? Hers is the most minimal, and then you've got Leia, who is a bit more able with it, but then you see her compared to Luke, and then Luke compared to Sabayoth, whatever his name is, and where it's like, you know, Leia's like, okay, I gotta concentrate a bit more so that I can keep this lightsaber like
Hovering.
still, and yeah, and then Luke is like, okay, I can use my mind to like swing my lightsaber to cut the hole of the ship to save us. And then
Yeah.
you got Sabayoth, who's like, I can control whole fleets and coordinate with my mind.
I can reach across light years, control a deck officer to give a dude a
The
message.
method.
Yeah.
Which so he's like basically doing battle meditation is like at least as described in like the games a little bit is like was my interpretation there.
Oh no, he's explicitly doing
Yeah.
battle meditation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
the whole thing
Yeah.
about him coordinating the fleets and increasing their efficiency.
I think he was doing that in the first book too.
He was doing it in the
Yeah.
first book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
When
it
he
was
was
like a
reaching
bit
out to Luke.
taxing for him, right? But now he's grown in strength from there. And so that's an interesting, like,
It's still taxing on his attention. But
yeah.
yes.
But yeah, he's able to do more than he was in book one. And the end where he has that conversation with Thrawn, which is like, no, I am the not disposable. I'm the only not disposable component of the Empire. Flipping the tables, it's like the fact that Thrawn still thinks that he can control him is interesting. I mean, we don't get to see into Thrawn's mind, so we don't really know, like, is he starting to get doubts? Is he starting to have some panic? But it does set up the next book really well. I'm
Well,
really
'cause-
excited to get into it.
Yeah, and we weren't shown what happened at the end, which with their meeting, right?
No, they went into the meeting and
Yeah,
then it
okay.
ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
But yeah, so that's what on the topic of Thrawn, I wonder if anyone else feels this way, but I found his I guess one of the smaller nitpicks for me is it's weird how many missteps he has this book compared to the previous one. And that like for a lot of his assumptions at the beginning, they're still very much on the he knows exactly what everyone else is doing, right? And then at some point in the center, and I don't really know what the impetus was for this, other than it moves the plot in a specific way. He starts misjudging a lot of situations, especially like the Nogiri and Leia situation. I found interesting that he just totally buys into this one path, this one venue, which he doesn't have very much evidence for. I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but
Yeah, he shows some of the limitations of assumptions based on most probable outcomes.
yeah.
Well, I think it's when I was saying that there's like really clean storytelling in this, right? It's like if Zahn wants Thrawn to,
Not find Leia.
yeah, like
Yeah.
if for the sake of the plot, right? It's
Yep.
Thrawn will be really good at forwarding, whoever's against. But when Zahn needs something else to happen, it just conveniently, okay, Thrawn is going to be a bit more stubborn. But if I were to say, and that's the thing, is like we don't get to see into Thrawn, right? So we don't really know what's going on there, and Peleon is really our only interface. Part of it is potentially that the situation with the Nogiri has been such that he feels pretty confident in the way that he can handle them. and therefore kind of writes them off as a potential threat. So that would be like my kind of excuse for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in that sense, it's almost like I mean, it's the whole like arrogance is the downfall of a lot of villains, where he is, and since a lot of times he is correct, but he doesn't. He often stops with certain assumptions where like there's, like you said with the Nogri, like he thinks he has them totally figured out, but he can't account for Leia figuring out the Empire's stuff with that.
Yeah. He cannot
And-
account for Leia going to that planet
Right.
without a ship of her own.
Right,
Yeah.
and like right, and then in the other instance I was thinking of is when they're escaping with Card in the Falcon. He couldn't have accounted for. Well, that's kind of main character plot armor, but like
Yes.
he could like that's but like he couldn't like that's the
He couldn't
like,
have accounted for them like being on the lift that the Falcon was
Yeah.
being transported through.
yeah
Yeah.
just certain details and them having the ability to make it through whatever the small gap between the shield thing that almost
And they were
Mhm.
literally only like a
Squash the
minute
ship.
ahead of him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did anticipate what they were gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
although
But yes, it's just very like, if you want something that's more gray and that's gonna be more complex, will they, won't they, like, this is not that. That's not what Star Wars really is.
No.
Like,
No.
for Star Wars, you
Well, hey,
know the-
hey. It's not what this Star Wars is. New
Yeah.
Jedi
Okay,
Order might
Okay.
have some more of that.
that's interesting. That's good to know. But in general, like with Star Wars, like, the good guys are gonna win. But yeah.
Unless
Except-
they fall to the dark side.
Which did not
and
happen
Thrawn-
here.
No, but Thrawn finally gets like a real substantial victory in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like that
true.
was my I did kind of think he's not, for as smart as he is in a lot of situations, he hadn't really demonstrated that he didn't have a major victory where he
Yeah,
just
he's
fought
been
out.
close,
Right.
but not
Yeah.
quite.
Right. Like Sluice Vaughn, he loses because he can't account for, I don't know, Han and Lando's wild card plot armor stuff. Whereas in this one, it's just like, yeah, he was just smarter
Yeah.
and faster to get to the Dark Force.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which, with a
Money.
name like that, who knew that it was going to end up on that side, right?
Okay. The entire backstory around the Dark Force, like Dark Jedi Uprising, that Sabaoth was around, like happened around with Sabaoth. All the old Republic stuff, like I want more of that, but that's not what we're getting, I don't think.
I like that Lando is a Dark Force geek.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really like that. I like that. No, he pursued all the information that he could because he once got suckered into a bad deal about a fake Dark Force map.
He had to learn all he could just to get rid of the map.
So when are we getting National Treasure but with Lando then?
There we go.
read it.
You know what? The Black Fleet Crisis might be what you're looking for.
I was gonna say,
Wait, is it really?
Alright.
I was gonna say that there's a lot of Star Wars books. I'm not surprised that in some form exists, so that makes sense.
Add it to my DR.
I do love the characterization of Lando in this book as just like the friend that is being towed along is absolutely grumpy about it the entire time. I'm just like,
From page 1, when his first scene is getting shot at with Luke by a Nile farrier.
Yeah. Also, when he was trying to cheer Han up after the whole casino thing, and he was like, well, you saved me because like, what would the New Republic do without me?
Good question.
It's true.
He's saved how many of their ships now?
I know.
I did like I did like that Han and Lando got a lot of time together to do stuff. Like we actually got to see them do their thing, and that was a fun dynamic.
Be friends as opposed to being told, "Hey, these guys are friends."
They're sketchy selves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The show.
Buddy cop.
Yeah.
And at least Lando's smart, so he covers up Han.
Yeah, he covers Han so much.
Han did get we did get a "never tell me the odds" line drop.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
40-1. Never tell me the odds. And we got a fleet arriving from hyperspace in just the nick of time too.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
my
And
goodness.
It was actually set up and made sense, and it wasn't a surprise.
Yes. When I was reading that scene, because the last quarter, maybe last third of this book was just so much fun. There were so many emotions. It was such a rush, and I was totally invested. It was almost as if I was watching the movie, maybe even better, like a movie in my head. And when those dreadnoughts showed up, I literally just screamed. I was like, "Oh my god, yes!" If this were adapted and in the theater and people didn't know about it, there would be cheering.
Yeah. And it would make sense.
Yeah.
The general push and pull of the battle I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was generally believable how the different turns were being taken.
Mhm.
Everything was kind of set up so that it was.
And personally,
correct.
I really liked that although the ships were running, they were not fully usable, and even just firing their weapons caused massive damage to them.
Yeah.
Disintegration.
No,
Bye-bye capacitors.
No disintegrations here.
Yeah, with a thump of disintegrating capacitors.
I was saying the only thing about the battle that I don't particularly like is that it is yet another another big space battle where the main stakes is just who gets more ships.
I mean, also if Mara Jade survives.
Yeah.
Well, true. Yeah.
Luke needs his love interest too.
What do you mean she wants to kill him?
Enemies to lovers.
But she's got such pretty hair.
They're gonna bone. It might not be on page, but totally.
It's happening.
Yes.
It's definitely not going to be on page.
Well, I'm sure there's fan fiction about it.
Look, there's certain Star Wars novels which get a reputation for their steamy scenes.
Wait, really?
Yeah, one of them involving Princess Leia.
Okay.
And you didn't say Han, so...
No, it's not with Han. It's with an alien who has pheromones.
I don't want to read that.
A crime syndicate boss.
You sure that wasn't fanfic? Well, I guess these are just really,
a lot of the readership wishes it was fanfic.
Speaking of Leia, you know how we keep getting reminded of, she felt a kick in her stomach, because to remind us she's pregnant.
Yeah.
I looked it up. Okay, when would you feel in your pregnancy? When would you feel that consistent moving? It's about halfway, a little past halfway through the pregnancy. So she's pretty well along, second trimester. And I told you guys in our chat, she should be eating more. She would have swollen feet, swollen hands. She should be eating every couple of hours, making sure she has plenty of fluids. But conveniently, none of that is in here,
No.
It's a
because
force-powered pregnancy, you know.
Mhm.
It's that Jedi meditation.
It's the
Yeah.
midichlorians nourishing her.
She gets her sustenance directly from the Force.
I guess.
She's always like, yeah, the Jedi meditation in hyperspace.
I mean, Anakin
But that all the
Anakin was
time.
conceived by the Force, so
Yep.
I do
I-
agree that like Leia's pregnancy is so in question here. Like for a while, how many months have actually passed since the beginning of this series? Because she was already a couple months pregnant, right, when it started.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And she was
then-
showing.
Yeah, so she's on the verge of bursting here. Like she's gonna be
it's
pregnant in what? Or
I
she's
mean,
gonna be
this
giving
series
birth in a month.
hasn't taken that long. Like, especially this book.
Yeah.
But
I feel like this book was only a few weeks.
This book was a few weeks, but I think they said like since the whole Thrawn situation has started, it's somewhere in like the 4-month, 5-month period.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
she's like
this book
halfway through.
picks up immediately after the end of the first book. Immediately.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Because it's like Luke has to get his starfighter repaired.
which there was the whole line about the like Luke feeling bad for circumventing the basically
Oh, the
stealing
bureaucracy?
the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Leia's the various
Leia's
steps of
pregnancy is minimal.
Yeah, the steps of her pregnancy will become they will be prominent when they need to be prominent for
Yes.
specific plot beats.
Yes.
Leia can think a lot about what world am I bringing my children into and where am I going to bring them, and not a lot about my feet hurt.
Yes.
Like I said, it's the Robert Jordan school of how pregnancy works.
yeah.
She's not drinking enough goat milk, if that's the case, then.
Though I did appreciate that she brought like scanning equipment to make sure that her children weren't going to
Oh,
be
yes.
at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honegar.
And like even Han's thinking about it, like she's just doing way too much on the
Yes.
diplomacy side, and yeah.
What is maternity leave like in New Republic?
Apparently it doesn't
Not
exist.
great, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
When Borskfelia wants your job, it doesn't exist.
And
Oh,
I mean, Mon Mothma like doesn't seem to be very lenient about any of that with her.
Well, I mean, yeah, corporate America is you keep working until you're basically at your due date.
But I do think that one of the major themes of this book is that Mon Mothma has Leia,
Mm-hmm.
and Thrawn does not have anyone.
Yeah.
Thrawn doesn't have anyone who can independently go out and do his job or be his agent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he also
He has people
doesn't-
who can follow orders, and that's great. But there's situations where that's not what he needs. He needs someone who can independently make decisions and follow up. If he had left someone like that on the Nogri home planet, on Honogar, Leia wouldn't have been able to do anything that she did. Instead, he left an espionage droid in a decon droid's body and
Right.
thought that would be enough.
And
Right.
one
Well-
that didn't have transmitting capabilities either.
right.
Yes.
And what?
Conveniently, yes.
Very conveniently did not have transmitting capabilities.
It's the Force.
Well, to what extent though is that kind of what Thrawn wants? Because Thrawn doesn't really seem to trust anybody.
No, I
to
think
be-
he's trying. He's trying to train Paelin, or
Yeah.
however you say his name.
Paleon.
Paleo.
Yeah,
Leia.
yeah.
He's trying to train Paleon.
And even Paleon has his hard times with Thrawn, with
Yeah.
trusting what he's actually doing. There's a lot of
Paleon's been
Lack of a
abused
better word
too
for it.
much to
Yeah.
to have initiative.
Without
Yeah.
getting too much into spoilers for the other books, but the first book in the new Thrawn trilogy does have that kind of relationship between Thrawn and somebody, of him building up
Mm.
somebody he can trust to do his job. So
Interesting.
it's
Okay.
nice to see there, even though we don't really get it here.
We'll see if Peleon has like independent I'm guessing no, but we'll see.
Minor spoilers for Legends. Peleon is a very long-running character.
Ooh, huh.
Oh, good to know.
I remember Drew getting very excited when he was announced for live action.
Wait, have I seen him already?
Maybe.
Peleon is actually probably one of the most important Imperial characters in Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's the only way we can really understand Thrawn, so...
Yep.
Yeah. He's a stand-in.
But, I mean, he develops into his own person eventually. I don't know how much we need to cut, but yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know. Do we want to talk more about Luke and your annoyance with his characterization in this book?
Sure. He thinks he can redeem Sabaoth, who we know has troubles just keeping his thoughts straight. Because I do think that we got to see as readers in this book the first time around just how absolutely mentally compromised Sabaoth is in his own head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The man cannot keep a single train of thought. He cannot think in long term. And Thrawn lays it out too. Thrawn lays out Sabaoth's mental deficiencies. And Luke just can't see it.
That was my big, like, the number of red flags that should have gone up for Luke within 5 minutes of meeting Sabaoth. It's like there were let's just say there were lots of un-Jedi things very quickly. He literally sees
Real
him
quick.
use Force lightning because he feels like it.
Well, that's what.
On
Yeah, the second Luke lands on that planet, he has an oddly blank slate on morality in general, or ethics in general. Like
he's like, oh well, I'll reserve judgment.
Yeah,
He turns into
I'll just trust him.
He turns into 16-year-old farm boy Luke, not 28-year-old.
Yeah.
General Luke.
not even 16-year-old. He turns into like 12-year-old farm boy Luke.
I'm going to defend Luke for a little bit. We'll see how well this lands. But I do appreciate that we do get, his internal thoughts, his internal reactions to what Sabaoth. I think it's Sabaoth.
What is Sabaoth? But I don't know.
Sabaoth says and does. And a lot of it I think does play well with the characterization of Luke being very trusting. And Sabaoth has this title of Jedi Master, and Luke is putting a lot of trust in that title. And when he's seeing okay, well, the only Jedi Masters, at least in this version of the universe, he has met was Yoda and Ben Kenobi.
Yep.
And with Yoda, his first interactions with Yoda was also kind of shady, really not sure, seems kind of creepy, dark. And so I think Zahn did try to put parallels with him meeting Sabaoth and how Luke met Yoda first. But then it does get to a point, I agree with you that it does get to a point where it's like, Luke, you have now had a lot more experience. The Force is strong within you. And so you should know better. And he finally gets it. But it was a little too it took this much to get it through your head.
It took another person telling him almost.
Well, that's
he needed Mara Jade.
And then Mara Jade was like, he already knows.
Yeah. But I guess he didn't want to admit it because it's then maybe Jedi Master doesn't mean anything. He had put so much hope in that this guy is going to teach me to how to be a better Jedi, right? I'm going to learn so much from this person. and now he's like refusing. There's like self-denial, right? Like, I don't want to admit this is not the guy that I wanted him to be, or I thought he was.
Right, which is interesting that the part where I felt like it was kind of a regression was where Luke has Luke has more hands-on experience dealing with the complexities of the Force and the light side and dark side than pretty much any Jedi, sans maybe like Yoda. And so, or at least, I mean, obviously not as much general life experience, but what he went through with the Emperor and Vader would give him a pretty good understanding, or at least have some.
I mean, how long did he actually spend with the Emperor and Vader?
That's true.
In terms of days, how long was it? Was it even a single day?
I think it was like
Probably
2
not.
hours. It was
Yeah,
it was
couple
like 2
hours.
fights. It was 2
Yeah.
fights.
They pretty much walked him in there and were like, all right, time to
Yeah.
die.
Like, or I'm more just that he had to handle and presumably reflect on that situation later. But you have that, and then the disagreement that Sabaoth oversees, just juxtaposed with literally earlier in this book, Luke doing the whole Jedi mediation thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know better.
Yeah.
Well, but I think it's Luke is being humble, right? Like, he
Yeah.
acknowledges that he doesn't know everything. There's still so much for him to learn, and him mediating that one disagreement on Nukov.
Yeah.
He was like, "Ah, this is such a burden." And I think part of it is he didn't really want to have to take full responsibility. Like, well, I was hoping this Jedi Master would be able to tell me how to make things easier, but I guess he's not. And so it's really just going to be me.
Mhm.
And I don't think, or I think on some part, Sabaoth is kind of influencing that humbleness, right? Like when Mara Jade frees him from the hypnosis, it kind of is indicated that, he has these uncertainties that he's
Mm,
juggling, and Sabaoth is taking full advantage, which puts him
that's a
kind
good
of
point.
at a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luke does not seem to have a defense against Sabaoth's mental influence.
No.
Right.
And he doesn't think it's weird that a fight over some fruit bushes is going to turn into a blaster fight
Yeah.
Yes.
in front of a Jedi Master. He doesn't think
Yeah.
it's weird that this whole town is like on a knife's edge.
Right.
Are you trying to say something about like Sabaoth just making these conflicts happen or influencing these conflicts?
I mean, yeah, clearly.
He's bored.
He
He has a throne, you know?
Yeah.
He's gotta
Look,
have things to do while sitting on that throne.
Exactly.
What's an insane clone supposed to do? You know?
Yeah. He wants to play God, so he wants to be God.
Yeah.
I do like how he's like open and outright with his W in his name, but Luke just doesn't call him on it.
No.
Yeah.
Because no one knows what to do when they hear a W in someone's name when they thought there was only one.
Yeah.
I do want.
How would you respond? I would brush it off. I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have. That I might not have thought much about in and of itself.
How does that sound though? Like, does it
I'd love to know.
how different does it sound from the original name?
Clearly not enough.
Yeah, because like, are you gonna be like, can you please write down your name for me?
How do you spell that? Yeah.
Actually, nobody actually asks that, right?
Nope,
in
nobody
the Star Wars
asks.
universe.
Because in the Star Wars universe, it's not clear who can read.
Okay, can I go on a little rant here?
Sure.
There's so much technology, but yet, at least I haven't seen who the hell is coding all of this. What coding language are they using? What protocols, like, in development are they using And like, who coded in the back door for the access code, the Emperor could use, Amara Jade could use? Like, there's
Developers.
I think the
Yeah.
person who did that is dead
Developers
now.
should be heard and not seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, is that ever addressed? Like, who is
Slicers.
programming?
We're gonna meet a slicer
Mhm.
soon.
Okay, so
no,
I
slicers
think he's
are
more
these
of a
programmers?
hacker than
Slicers are hackers. I don't think we ever meet a computer programmer who's working on like an integrated development environment.
The short answer is no. It's not addressed. That's a
And, like-
No, but we also never cover like who assembles the Star Destroyers.
Mhm.
well,
Who creates them?
Well, we got a little bit with the sequel trilogy. Oh no, Rogue One.
the Rogue One, yeah.
We got a
Yeah.
little bit with Rogue One.
Being a mechanic seems to get you a long way in this
Yeah,
galaxy.
that's-
I just
Like,
kinda like-
Just think about how many you would need, like, developers for all the technology that is there. Maybe it's self-replicating. Maybe it's AI.
Chewie came in clutch. I mean, there's clearly some level of AI. I mean,
Wait,
there's all the
the-
droids.
Right.
Like, yeah, the
Yeah.
droids are basically have like sentient.
Maybe it's the droids
personalities.
that's coding everything.
I'm
And that's
sure
why
they're-
they keep memory wiping the droids, that they don't develop personalities.
Yeah, no, that's a
That would
literal
explain
plot
it.
point in Heir to the Empire where like R2 is literally better with the X-wing because of all
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
shortcuts that have been hard. Like,
Yeah.
R2 is basically the X-wing software
Is a
developer.
counterpart.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a believable explanation. Yes.
Technology has gotten so far in the future that all you really need to know is how to interface with it as a user.
Right.
You just need to know like what jacks and what ports.
Unless you're a slicer.
Unless you're a slicer. Yeah.
If you're lucky to have mods, it'll probably just do it for you once you plug in.
You have an astromech droid who does all that stuff for you.
I would
yeah.
love to have an R2. Yes, please.
And
Well, thank you for indulging me.
C3PO helps you talk to computers too.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. His 6,000
6
6
million.
million.
languages.
million.
Sorry, 6 million.
I also do enjoy the amount of people who can and cannot understand binary and what R2 is saying because he's speaking in binary because that's his language.
I mean, he's not speaking in binary. He's
No,
absolutely not speaking
but that's
in
the
binary.
language that
He speaks in like raspberries and blacks.
Melodic tones.
melodic tones.
Yeah. It's true because like Mara Jade can understand Leia, obviously
Luke
Chewbacca.
can't.
Oh,
He needs a computer
He needs
to
a
read
screen.
out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true.
to translate. He can
That's
kind
true.
of get the gist of what he's saying, but he can't speak
Which
it
is
or
very
understand
ironic because Luke spends like the most time with R2.
similar. Chewie it functions similar with Chewie in terms
Yes.
of how who can and can't understand what with him, and the extent to which you need to. Usually, if you really need to understand what he's saying, there'll be some sort of violent physical response that he.
Right. that was the wrong thing. Okay.
He'll brandish
do-
his little arc welder at you. Yeah.
I really did like how we got a bit more insights into Wookiee personality from Leia about just like, okay, in that situation, I feel Leia's like frustration, like, Chewie, stop, don't hurt this Kabarak?
Yep.
Kabarak.
Yeah.
But he just like he can't. That's part of his nature, right? Like when he's angry Wookiees, and it really showed how dangerous they are and like why Chewie can't just like turn it off.
So yeah, different words that have been used over the eras to describe the language that R2 speaks are binary, astromech, droid speak, and basic.
No.
But
the
it's
basic's
it's
weird.
basic as
because-
in the programming language, right?
but basic's weird because I thought that was the name of like the
It is.
It
English.
Yes.
It is.
Like-
Yes. Wait, I guess like. Oh,
Maybe there's a subset of basic that's just for droids.
No.
Sometimes his yells are in basic, so it counts.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. That means that nobody really like had a good handle on what language R2 actually speaks.
Not really. No.
I did like Leia's plot, her little plot line here, and how like it wasn't just like something easy for her to resolve. There was real danger, there were real stakes, and she really had to rely on wits and attention and diplomacy, and the end part where, you know, as she's headed towards I guess their capital basically.
Yep.
And how the crowd of people just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That would be so epic to watch, like on the screen. I would love
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, and it was also cool to see the cultural differences actually mattering for the plot,
Mhm.
especially with that sequence where all of the Nogri history and culture is how it's how the Empire used them, but it's also how Leia was able to turn them back or turn them kind of.
I would just say
And
like
then the final
overall.
reveal
Oh,
of the
sorry,
time
go ahead.
scale
Yes.
based on Nogri generations
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
came
That
from
was
a
great.
misunderstanding of like first son and third son.
Yes. Like, but you said you had 4 children, they all died. Then who's Kabarik?
Yep.
Yeah.
Overall, what I would say is that, at least from the first 2 books, at least the series, it's satisfying. Like, for the reader, it's a very satisfying experience. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but having read Malazan and wanting this kind of satisfaction in a lot of the scenes, and I did not get it, this is really nice.
Oh
I would put
my!
it there.
Wow.
I
Wow.
love
Wow.
I
I'm
love
gonna
this.
go talk to Ash after this. I'm gonna say, so Panda
love
just said
this.
that Malazan was worse than Star Wars.
Those were not my words. Okay, there's evidence.
Okay,
got it on
so
recording.
Malazan is not satisfying. That's the
It's not this kind of satisfying. Okay, and if you read the series, you know anyway.
I do know.
Yep, I'm aware.
Yeah.
I thought Malazan was only a series of happy conclusions and endings.
Oh yeah, totally. Yes.
Everything gets wrapped up in a neat little bow. There's no more unanswered questions after
Yep.
the series.
Yep.
Certainly not room for anything to follow after. No,
No.
not at all.
Sorry, Spook. I just. It's also to set your expectations when you do start
to be just
Malazan.
bored,
You know.
unsatisfied, and not
No.
enjoy it at all.
no that is
Malazan's a
best-
terrible thriller.
Yes, fact.
the best thing that I think I said this before. The best thing that I have had with Malazan going in is appropriate expectations, generally speaking.
Yeah.
They're definitely trying to do very different things, right? I mean, I think
Oh yeah.
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 This trilogy, in some capacity, is supposed to be siloed from anything else that follows.
I don't know. I think
regardless of
the
what
only
did
thing that
follow.
matters in Malazan is can Animander Rake beat Perrin in a sword fight?
Oh, absolutely. That's not even a question.
Those are Pokemon names in my brain. I don't know.
No. The only question from Malazan is, can Rake brood more
And Batman.
more like Batman?
Okay, I'm
That
sorry
little
to
Can
derail
he
it.
strike a
Yes.
better pose?
Back to Star Wars.
Yes.
Um,
I did one thing that was an interesting note that I thought it's implied and maybe stated that the Emperor had granted Mara Jade her Force abilities. I thought that was an interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
how does that work?
don't think we're gonna get any more on that, but
Really?
Well,
okay,
Okay.
okay. I will be.
I mean, it's
pleasantly
something
surprised.
to be explored. So I think we'll
Yeah.
get.
Certainly.
I don't know if it'll be in the next book, but I think we'll get something.
Okay,
I guess
I
what-
like our redheaded character. I think she's a fun one.
Yeah,
she is.
that's
Or
what
Jin-
I think. This trilogy especially gave us two very strong new characters in
Mhm.
Thrawn and Mara.
Yeah.
And without spoiling anything that might follow later, but I just looking at the way the Emperor probably handled things, saying that something was granted, probably, isn't actually what happened. um,
I see what you're
I-
saying.
yeah.
I have a theory.
Okay.
What's
your theory?
Okay.
Okay, my theory is that the Emperor had a way to suppress Force usage, so that he Mara probably was naturally Force sensitive. The Emperor saw that and had figured out some way to suppress that or magnify that, depending on what he wanted her to have, what power. What I am going to use the word power level. Usually, isn't helpful for any conversation, but what power level he wanted her to have, depending on what he needed her to do. That's a very vague theory. But
Interesting. Okay.
Buy that. Yeah.
How did you like the revelation that he had more than one hand?
I don't know if I buy
Not-
that, but
Oh, I
I
do.
think-
But
yeah?
okay.
Everybody has to. It makes sense.
Everybody has to.
Except Luke and Vader, but it makes sense.
Well, even then.
Oh, that was another weird little revelation that I'm not sure how it ties into modern canon.
Yeah.
But it's that Darth
I made
Vader
that note.
lost his hand after Endor.
Right,
After,
right,
the
right.
Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, after Yavin, I mean. Sorry.
Yavin, yeah.
I was listening to it and I went, that's not when he lost his hand. And so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that part's definitely not canon anymore.
It became not canon in 2004. Or it was Attack of the Clones, I think, is when he loses his hand.
Yes.
The first one.
Yes. Multiple hands. Yes.
Like the Proto Inquisitors.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. But then now begs the question, okay, who else? And have we met them?
It's similar to it sound. I read it similar to Grand Admirals.
Is it
Um,
Delta Source?
I think
I have a
Do
theory
you
who
have a
Delta
Delta
Source
Source theory?
I think I actually remembered.
Oh.
That one.
Well, if you remember something, then
Yeah,
don't say
no,
it.
that one I'm not touching, because that one I actually do think I remember. But
Okay.
and I'm not going to go any further on that.
Okay, I have a theory.
Okay, what's your theory?
It's probably Winter.
Okay.
I think it's Winter. But I don't want it to be Winter. It's
Okay.
just, she knows a lot.
She would be an excellent intelligence agent with that memory.
Yes, she would.
Yeah, she has the memory thing.
Yeah, she's got a perfect memory.
But I
Well,
also want her to be a double agent. So, I don't
Hmm.
know. But that's my theory.
Well, she's not dead yet, and we will get more Winter.
Okay.
Not a spoiler to say that.
She's still alive. She's in the next book.
Yep.
Wait, does Spook, do you know?
No.
Do you have a theory?
I don't remember Delta Source, so I don't remember that in the books. So
Delta Source
Yeah.
is the one that directly told Thrawn that Luke was going to Jomark.
gotcha. I mean, it could be Winter. She would make sense.
I mean, I just don't think it would be,
Ophelia.
Ophelia?
That guy, or the other, the other Bothan. I can't say their names.
I
Oh,
can't
his
remember
like,
his name.
yeah.
Yeah.
Braillia?
It is. It starts with a B, right? I think.
Yeah, it's
There's an
Braillia.
F and there's a
Oh.
B.
The audiobook pronounces it Phalia.
Phalia. Okay.
Yeah,
There are apostrophes in there, so I just
sure.
I did like that on that note that was how Thrawn, that Phalia is not, well, at least according to the book as we know right now, Phalia is not like an Imperial agent, and Thrawn is just going based off of Bothan culture and
yes.
and how he, like, basically he's like, hey, don't worry, they're gonna tear themselves apart with this politically, and he's like,
Right.
that's kind of how he wins in this book in a
Mhm.
way, like that he's like, don't worry, they'll be tied down long enough for us to get there, and that's kind of what happens.
It's so frustrating. Like, yes, it is a satisfying read, but at the same time, reading that part was so frustrating. Where it's probably because it just is such a reflection and mirrors real life, too much. But yes, like some. Okay, I shouldn't say it because it's going to be taken out of context. Yes, sometimes a democracy is just really annoying, okay? There are times where you just want a more efficient process.
Yeah. And having
I
people like
mean-
Phalia doesn't help always.
The rebellion is not a democracy.
A republic, which
Yep.
is the
Yep.
predecessor to
And
democracy.
Wedge
Different
Antilles
form.
defies orders.
That's true.
Wedge is great in the.
I
this
want a Wedge
book.
book. I
love
want to read Wedge.
Is he the main character in the actual book?
He's the squadron commander of
Yeah.
Rogue Squadron. Yes,
Yeah.
he's in the Rogue
Great.
Squadron books.
Yeah.
He's not always he's not always our POV though. He's not always our focalizer. We get a lot of Corran Horn there.
Horn?
Corran Horn, a hornier
Horn.
X-wing pilot you will not meet.
Okay, got it. It's
I-
gonna
I-
be Cornhorn in my brain now.
I love Star Wars names almost as much as Star Wars MacGuffins, but
Yeah.
he's a
Calamari.
he's a Corellian and he's ex-law enforcement and he's very judgmental.
Oh, okay. Speaking of Corellian, the dead senator that's not dead.
Garm
Bella-
El Iblis.
yeah.
Iblis, yes. That was great. I really enjoyed that whole section, and
Mhm.
Yeah, I like him.
discovery of the dreadnought is actually from the Katana fleet. Like, and the
Yeah,
way
and-
that he shows up. Yes.
Yeah, and
The
Han-
incorporation of.
And Lando took a screen off the wall and checked its ports to find out if it was
Yeah,
from the
Nerd.
Nerd, indeed. Um,
go ahead.
but the way that he shows up, right, is because he thinks that Mon Mothma like explicitly requested his assistance, and therefore he could like save face and come back to the New
Mhm.
Republic. And then Leia's just like, "What? No?
Who
Well,
are you?
You know
Well,
what?
I'm requesting now.
Yeah.
It is. Let it be." That was great.
Yep.
And I do love how that like just does bring in the complexities of this. It's not just the Republic, the New Republic, and the Empire in this
Right.
galaxy. There are so
Which-
many other parties that are trying to work something out. You know,
And
Yeah,
that decision really highlights the difference between Mon Mothma and Thrawn.
Mhm.
Because Leia has independent authority. Pelayan would never dream of asking something like that
Yeah.
on his own
Right.
authority.
not at all.
Right.
It's one of the weirder. Does Mon Mothma ever actually speak in this book? Now that I
Yes.
think about it.
Yeah.
She does.
Yes,
okay.
she does.
Okay.
She doesn't say a
just-
lot though.
Yeah. I just feel like so many things she'll be present at, but she says absolutely nothing, and decisions are just being made by Phalia or by Leia. And it's like these people are level on some political degree, right? Like Phalia and Leia. One of them
And
does
and
not
Mon
trump the
Mothma.
other.
And
Yeah.
Mon
Oh
Mothma.
yeah.
Leia listens to Mon Mothma and like puts her ahead of herself, but legally and like hierarchically speaking, Leia's at the same level.
Yeah. So it's just it's interesting to see how that works most of the
But
time.
Phalia's like, well, this order to arrest Han and Luke
Yeah.
comes directly from Mon Mothma, so Leia, it doesn't matter what you want.
Yeah.
That part confused me. I had to
Yeah,
reread
I was
it.
Yeah.
confused by that.
Especially because Mon Mothma didn't say to arrest them.
But like couldn't to the whole like they're all equal point. Couldn't like how is that? Was it described
And-
how that was decided?
Yeah, I mean, I
Like
think
a
that
vote
like
or
realistically speaking, they're not all equal.
Mhm.
yeah. Right, sure. Mon Mothma like has the most influence,
Yeah.
but
I think the best analogy I have is like she's kind of either like the chairman of the
Yeah.
whole council
Yeah.
group or like the speaker of the house kind of thing.
yeah.
And I think
We're not given any information really about that.
No.
I think due to the enforcers present when he's saying we're arresting them, it doesn't matter even if it came from Mon Mothma. They're his people, so what
That's
he
true.
says goes.
That's
Right.
true.
Which speaking of his people, that was a really cool moment when Luke does when they turn on him because he's like, yeah, I don't really care about their lives. Like they're there to help me be
Anybody who's against me is my
Right.
enemy.
right.
I love Talon-Card and just
Hard.
him just being a little scoundrel.
Yes. My headcanon for him is the bounty hunt, not bounty hunter, the person in the Mandalorian that sets all the bounties in like season 1.
He's the new Jabba. essentially.
Yeah.
Krieg.
Yes,
Is that his
Krieg.
name?
Yeah, I think that's him. Yeah, like he's like my headcanon because I could just see some of the sarcasm, like
Sure.
sarcastic remarks. Like, not how he was probably imagined, but fills a similar role.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's too far off. I like that comparison.
I keep having the Guardians of the Galaxy intrusion into my brain whenever it's like Card. I don't remember his name, but the guy who does the whistling with the arrow
Oh,
from Guardians.
Yondu.
Oh,
Yondu.
Yeah.
Yondu.
Yes.
Hmm.
Like Card and Yondu are kind of the same.
I feel
in my
Card is
mind.
more distinguished in my mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Distinguished in what?
Manner.
yeah,
Appearance,
yeah,
a
yeah.
manner.
Yes.
I think they fulfill a similar role, but different
Yes.
way about it.
Good point.
I think Han is closer to Yondu in my mind.
That
Really? Oh.
Early Han, like before,
Oh,
when he
okay.
was a smuggler, not
Got
now.
it.
Although I do think Card is treated as the kind of Han Solo fill-in character because Han can't
Right.
be a bad person anymore, in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did that. I did like that was actually addressed in Heir to the Empire when they're having negotiations with the different bounty hunter or some of the other people, and Han has that whole thing where he's like, yeah, I can't like someone else has to do some of this stuff because they're gonna be scared I'm gonna like rat them out and such and such.
So like there's this so like the Republic hasn't really formalized into its formal arrangement and power
Mhm.
structure yet. And so they're all just kind of carrying authority over through inertia. And so Mon
Okay.
Mothma's name carries more weight than Leia's does or than Phalia's does. And she is the heir apparent to head the new government. But she doesn't
That's true.
actually have more power in
Mhm.
name currently.
And that's
Yeah.
what the Senator Iblis was asking, right? Like,
Yes.
is Mon Mothma like in
Going to be emperor.
power? Yeah.
Is she? Are they forming a government with her at the head of it?
Right.
And Han was like, "Well, who else?"
Yeah. I guess it's more like her reputation because she's one of the quote unquote OGs
Yep.
from that time period. So it naturally makes sense. Yeah, good point.
We do have a listener question from Huron fan. Who is the better villain, Thrawn, Palpatine, or J.J. Abrams?
Start lighting fires.
I think the
Thrawn.
Yeah.
Thrawn. My troll response to the J.J. Abrams inclusion is it's really Kathleen Kennedy. It was my
Oh, gee.
but that's a whole.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's my troll answer to the J.J. Abrams inclusion. But Thrawn is also would be my.
My
just cool.
response my response to that would be capitalism. That's the real villain.
Honestly, George Lucas for creating the entire thing is probably the biggest villain.
Villain or thing is that he created it.
Palpatine's not an interesting villain. He's just ha ha ha. I want power. Thrawn is. I want to preserve order, and that's always more interesting to me than just a naked power grab.
Sure.
How Palpatine goes about his power grab is it's fun to watch because McDiarmid. Ian McDiarmid is fun to watch. Is what I'll say.
Because it's one of the most convoluted ways to grab power that I've ever seen.
It is, but that's what kind of makes it fun. Like it's.
Do the novelizations not make it better?
I think Plagueis is a great book, and that kind of
Yes.
shows Palpatine's rise.
Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't read the Matthew Stover Revenge of the Sith novelization, but I've heard. I imagine it goes a little bit more into that.
It mostly makes Anakin better.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do too much for Palpatine.
Okay.
It certainly makes him less comical.
Sure.
But
I mean, with a lot of stuff in the prequel, it's difficult for some of those dialogue lines to not be comical, like no matter how you deliver them.
Well, that's just Star Wars in general.
I mean, yes.
There's an interview with Mark Hamill where like he's complaining about lines that George gave him. He's like, nobody talks like this. And he's like telling George, he's like, nobody can speak like this. He's like, you're gonna say those words.
Like,
well, have you heard the no bras in space line?
Yeah. Oh my god.
What?
George Lucas wanted Carrie Fisher not to wear a bra in any of her scenes on camera because he said there's no such thing as bras in space. They would kill you.
Underwear in general.
Yeah, it would get too tangled in the microgravity and it would strangle and kill you.
Interesting.
That's the Robert Jordan realm of thought, right there. Before Robert Jordan, actually.
And Carrie Fisher was like, "You're insane. I'm not doing that," and put her foot down.
Hey,
good job.
I mean, he must have been thinking that it's kind of like poetry. It rhymes.
Kind of.
Oh no.
I was trying to get that in there, but it didn't.
No bras in space.
Yeah.
No.
Too many wires.
There are wire. Okay, never mind.
We're back to the coding.
Don't look at it too hard. Yeah.
It's gonna stab you in the chest.
There are wireless
You'll bleed out and
bras.
die.
Like, sports bras don't have wires.
I think the extent of George Lucas's knowledge about bras is the same knowledge as Timothy Zahn's knowledge about how pregnancy works.
All right.
There was a morning sickness reference in book 1.
Yeah.
There was.
Yep.
Yes, I appreciated that. Yeah.
And a reference to the fact that period was over for Leia.
Yes. I mean, I get it. Like, the
No, it's
majority
more
of
than I'm used to expecting from Star Wars.
the majority of the audience has been male, predominantly male. Totally get it. Like,
Yep.
you write for your audience. I am curious, like in the newer Star Wars books, like how characterization, what gets included, what kind of themes, etc., is different to reflect modern times, and more like the readership and fan demographics now. And also, there are a lot of female authors writing for Star Wars now. So I haven't read any of those, but I'm curious to
Well,
see what that's like.
I've been too afraid of Alphabet Squadron, which is a squadron composed of all different ship types. So there's like a
Okay.
U-wing, a K-wing,
Yes.
an E-wing, an X-wing, an A-wing, a B-wing,
Sounds like
whatever.
Sounds
And
like
I'm like
such an
that
inefficient.
sounds like a terrible squadron.
no.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. How do you coordinate anything?
They all have different top speeds.
Well, yeah. Like,
They all have their specialties.
Yeah,
I
but
have
if
no
they're like
ideas.
going somewhere as a unit, like
The X-wing is just pumping well past
Right.
anyone
See you in
else.
the
2
A-wing,
weeks.
the
The A-wing,
A-wing's
yeah,
going
the
way
A-wing
past
is
everybody. A-wings only make sense if they're with other A-wings. But yes, I do like the reference, the reliance on the X-wing for Luke and the Z-95 for Mara Jade.
Mm.
yes. Anything else? Other
Did
burning
anyone else?
thoughts?
Just one more, just an Easter egg thing. Did anyone else catch that Dengar died in this? Or is that
No.
actually Dengar? Yeah.
No, I
Mara
guess not.
Jade, one of the first when it's
Oh yeah, he did. I did catch that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when she's trying to she's on that planet that Card has taken them all to. And she's walking around and she gets into an encounter with a bounty hunter, and it's revealed after she kills him that his ID says Dengar on it.
I don't know who
Hmm.
that
Who
is in
is-
this book, but
Yeah.
He's a bounty hunter from Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
remember
that's
the
where-
lineup of all the bounty hunters? He's the one that's like wearing the sock over his face, pretty much. It has like a
Mhm.
wrap.
If there's stuff like that, it's the whole like Star Wars continuity, that meme of like Star Wars continuity, and it's the Jenga puzzle and held up by the small Jenga piece. That's thing that costume designer in the 70s and 80s thought looked cool.
Yeah.
Like this,
Exactly.
that's a lot of this type of. If you come across stuff like that, that's probably just
Interesting.
some background character that looked cool at the time, and now they can
He's
now they can make they can die.
He's one of the bounty hunters that wasn't Boba Fett.
Yes.
Everyone
Okay.
latched onto Boba Fett.
Yeah, because I have no image in my head for this character at all from the movie.
You probably
That's fair.
They're not. Yeah, that is fair.
It's,
They're not an important character. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just everybody in Star Wars needs to have a name, so he has a name. And
Okay.
then he dies.
And now they can all get Disney Plus shows, but we don't need to go into that whole thing. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this concludes our discussion then on Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn. You can join us on the Legendarium Discord server, the self-styled friendliest place on the internet, for more discussion. I'm Stormrunner with Kyptan, BefuddledPanda, Jingles, and Spook. Thanks to the Legendarium, Horizon Brave for starting the green team, and for Jingle Punks for the intro and outro music. And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.